Hi, I'm Luke Searveld. Welcome to another episode of Meet the Gaffer. Today we're going to spend some time with Jed Mortenson. He's a producer who's based in Colorado, and we have spent time over the years working together and commiserating and sharing notes, and I've just watched his career throughout the years, and he's always been a good friend, and I thought maybe we could spend some time walking through his life up to this point. So, Jed, how you doing?
I'm doing well. We're going to walk through my whole life. That sounds like a lot to cover.
So when you and I met, you were like a PA on a job, and then I think I hired you or got you on to a job that we did for a company called Fatbox. And to my knowledge, you were just a guy starting out, but you had all this history behind you, or up to that point already. And so what I'd love to do is hear a little bit more about that. So you grew up in the Bay Area. Let's start there.
Cool. Yeah, I grew up in Los Gatos, and Bay Area kid. I was born in San Jose, and then my parents moved to Los Gatos when I was 1971, back when you could afford to move to Los Gatos. It's funny because it was actually KQED was instrumental in getting me into production. I don't know if I ever told you this story, but
no.
I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark when I was 11, right? 1981, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it completely blew me away and rocked my world. And then shortly after that, I remember watching on Channel 9, on KQED, the Bay Area public television station, the making of. And they had behind-the-scenes footage of, I think Kit West was the special effects guy, and seeing him do squibs. And I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do for a living. This looks like the most fun job ever. And that kind of started me on the path. I started borrowing or stealing, depending who you ask, my parents' Super 8 camera and shooting Super 8 movies. Lots of bad Indiana Jones, ripoffs. And then I was lucky enough to get into USC and went to the film school in USC. So in 1988, I moved to LA, and I was down there for many years. And so I got my film degree from USC, and then I think it was my last semester at USC, I got an internship with Gale Ann Hurd, who's the producer of Terminator and The Abyss and Aliens and now Walking Dead, and amazing producer. So I sort of got dropped in the deep end and got to work with her and her company, which was an incredible experience. And
how old were you then?
I would have been probably 20, 21, somewhere around there, early 20s. Okay, so that was, I think, what does it say on there? I think it was my 20th birthday. I actually took a semester off and worked for a company called Film Tricks, a guy named Kevin Pike, who was the special effects supervisor on Back to the Future, Return of the Jedi, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Great experience working for him. So, and I was very much I was the shop PA. I was sweeping the shop every morning and making coffee, and definitely starting from the ground up. But it was a great experience to be working with, he was doing all kinds of different small jobs at that point, TV shows and different things. So, but yeah, great experience for me.
And how long did you spend there?
I want to say maybe 4 or 5 months, something like that. And then I started, I wasn't going to go back to school for that semester, so I started working PA gigs. I worked as a PA on the Poison music video for Unskinny Bop. Cream Cheese Productions was the name of the production company, and $75 a day was my PA rate on the music video. But I did a bunch of random stuff like that, which was all great to get real on-set experience and, start learning how things worked on a real set.
Totally. And then did you go back to school to finish school?
I did, yeah. I went back for, after that semester off, I think I had another maybe year and a half, 2 years, and so then I kind of got into the meat of the production part of USC and was making my own student films, which is also a great experience, but obviously very different from the professional world. So I feel like I was really lucky to have a combination of both, you know, a little bit of real world experience and then a little bit of film school experience.
So I imagine if you were at USC, you were probably hearing about the lore of George Lucas. How did that compare to what you were going through?
Well, I mean, I guess it was interesting because he was definitely the most well-known alumni, I would say. The whole building that I went to school in at the time, which is no longer there, was the Lucas building. Like, he donated the buildings basically. So, but there were also lots of other famous alumni, you know, connected to George or not. You know, Ben Burt, incredible sound guy who designed all the original Star Wars sound effects stuff. He went there. Spielberg apparently didn't get in and went to Cal State Long Beach, I think it was, but he had donated a whole mixing stage. So there was a lot of USC had a very strong Hollywood connection. So I actually took a class my senior year that was the whole class was about Terminator 2. And James Cameron came in and spoke, and Linda Hamilton came in and spoke, and Joe Nemec, the production designer, all the keys basically came in and spoke because it was USC, so they could get people like that. So it was sort of a silly class, but again, incredible real world exposure to be able to
blow your mind time.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. So then after school, that was like a BA or a master's?
That was a Bachelor of Arts. So that was undergrad.
Then you stayed in LA or no?
Stayed in LA. So yeah. So then that end of my grad school end of my undergraduate at USC was when I got the internship with Galen Hurd. So I was an intern for a semester, and then I graduated, and she actually hired me as her assistant. So I did that. It was for the run of a specific feature film. So I worked on that film, and then once that was done, anyway, it was complicated, but I moved on to some different projects, and yeah, stayed in LA, worked on a bunch of different stuff. Several films sort of connected to her. I was the assistant to the director on a film called Safe Passage that she produced. And then kind of my grad school was I was the assistant to the director, John Bruno, who was an incredible visual effects guy, I think 7 nominations, and he won the Oscar for The Abyss. And this was his first film directing, so I got hired as his assistant, and I was on that movie for 2.5 years, from the very beginning of prep all the way through to the end of post. So that was an incredible learning experience for me.
That's a grad school.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So then after that, you just started producing your own films, right?
Yeah, group of us from USC. The guy who co-directed with me, Richard Spate Jr., and the guy who starred in it and also wrote the film, Casey Peterson, they had both been in the drama school at USC. So we had sort of tangentially met at USC, and then decided we were ready to try and make our first film. So that was what North Beach was. How
did you fund it?
It was all friends and family. I mean, it literally was like, I think it was around $70,000. And then unfortunately, this was right before the HD revolution happened. So we shot on 16 millimeter, and probably half of our budget was stock and processing and telecine. You know, if we could have shot it on, you know, one of the Panasonic P2 cameras or something that came out a few years later, it would have chopped the budget in half probably. But
right. So yeah, so not only did you make your own film straight out of the gate kind of thing, you made it on film. And
yeah.
Then how did you edit it?
First of all, I should mention Mark Herzig, who's a local Bay Area DP, volunteered or got shanghaied, depending who you ask. He shot the film and brought his own camera, which was amazing. That sort of willingness to contribute made it possible to make the film. All the crew worked for free. So, and then the editing, another good friend of mine from USC, a guy named David Crowther, very talented editor who had worked on True Lies and Titanic and a bunch of stuff with James Cameron after USC. He actually said, we asked him about editing it, and he said, "How much do you have for editing? Just give me that. I've been thinking about buying an Avid anyway." So he took our little tiny editing budget and bought his first Avid and set it up at his house, and we did all the We did all the editing there, and then we actually were able to do the post-production sound at Skywalker Sound because a guy named Bo Borders, who worked at Skywalker and had met Dave on Titanic, loved the film because he sort of lived the life that is portrayed in the film. So he got us in at Skywalker and basically mixed the film for free, and we came in on a weekend and did this sort of guerrilla mix, and that was a really cool experience too. George actually poked his head in at one point and looked around, and then we were all like, "Oh my god!"
Wow. So, and yeah, you shot it right down there near where Coppola had his building too, right?
Yeah, that another case of sort of knowing the right people. Casey's dad was a retired SFPD, so nobody ever asked us for a permit. We just really went guerrilla, and our crew was like 4 people, so it wasn't like we were closing down streets or anything crazy.
But it's a good film. I mean, it's very watchable. It's not like oh boy, I can't wait till this is over. It was fun.
Well, thank you. I'm very proud of it for what we did. We shot it in 17 days, which was moving pretty fast, and especially shooting on film. We actually, this may be getting too technical, but because the film was so expensive and the processing was so expensive, we wouldn't even shoot a full master. We would only shoot the beginning of the scene and the end of the scene in the master because we knew we would never use the master in the middle of the scene. And it was just trying to save a couple dollars in stock and processing.
You basically edited in camera.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely shot coverage, but we were very judicious in when we rolled because every time we pulled the trigger on the camera, we knew as soon as you heard that sound, you knew you were burning money. So you better be doing it for something useful.
And I wish we shot film more often now, because of that. You just had that added incentive to keep it going.
It's very easy now to just roll and roll and roll, and that's not always the best thing.
No, for sure. Here's Mark is there by the hi-hat, and you've got some cribbage going. So
yeah, a little bit. Alan Chun, who's a Bay Area guy, he's got the flag there, and that's Rich on the left, and me on the right in the red coat, and I'm trying to remember his name. Andrew Sachs, I think, was our first AC. And again, all these guys worked for free, volunteered their time for 3 weeks, and were just terrific. We were so lucky to have such a great group of people to help us make it.
Did you have to pay for a room and board?
Casey Peterson, who played the lead and wrote the film, he lived in Mill Valley at the time. So we all of us who were from LA stayed at his house. There were like mattresses all over the floor, and it was like a fraternity house practically. It was just yeah.
That's nuts. Wow. Impressive. Yeah. And for how it turned out, it's fun to hear that. And do you remember anything about the lighting?
I think it was Alan had one small HMI, like I'm going to say it wrong probably. I think maybe it was like a 6K par or something. It was like the only big light that we had, and everything else was smaller tungsten stuff. Obviously, we tried to use natural light as much as we could, and we were, we benefited from the fact that San Francisco is always foggy, so you always have nice, soft, even light. We rarely had direct sun that we were battling. Yeah, I'm trying to remember anything else specifically about the lighting. I think we might have had a couple of Kinos, some small HMIs, small tungsten. Yeah, we were pretty limited. The whole electric package was probably 6 lights. We didn't have much. Like a van. Yeah, and that you can see Mark's CP16, old, I think 1950s like news camera, and the thing was bulletproof. It did great. And no doubt separate sound. Yep, separate sound. Actually, a good friend of mine, David Acord, was our production sound man, and he had just moved to the Bay Area from various other places. But shortly after helping us with this film, he actually got into the post-production side of things at Skywalker, And before, not even through the same connection, I don't think that we had originally, but he's now one of the top sound designers in the world. He just got his second Oscar nomination for Episode 9 of Star Wars, and he and Matt Wood were also nominated for Episode 7, I'm pretty sure.
Well, that's good, because that'll come back towards the end of this, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there you go. We've got our bookends. Yeah. So now that was a wonderful experience, and then you just went on to shoot one feature after another, right?
No, not at all. It was the reality that so many people had was we made a feature film that was well received and did well at festivals and eventually got distribution, but we essentially never made a penny off of it. And that was the first and only feature film that I directed. There was another one that I helped produce when I moved here to Colorado, but yeah, in terms of directing, that's my one. That's my one and done.
And then were you able, I mean, did you try to sort of take it and shop it?
Oh yeah.
In Hollywood and all that?
Yeah, we did. We got a rep in LA, and he shopped it around, and he did get us a domestic and an international home video deal. We I think ended up making, I don't know, $800 or something off of it, and I actually donated all that money, gave all that money to the SAG health fund, because we had SAG actors, we had a SAG low budget deal, so I felt like if anybody was going to get the little bit of money we made, it should be going to the Screen Actors Guild. So yeah, it was in terms of money making, it was not a great endeavor, but it was definitely an amazing learning experience.
So then did you just say, oh, okay, I better go into construction? Or, I mean, what was your next step?
That was late 90s. And then I was working in various production-related things in LA, and met my wife-to-be down there. And then we didn't want to raise a family in LA, so we moved to Northern California. And to what you were saying earlier, there was a very nice gentleman named Luke Seerveld who sort of gave me my first job on a shoot in Northern California, because other than North Beach, which had been my little film I was producing, I had never been paid to shoot anything in Northern California. So you were nice enough to get me in, as a PA and a grip on some jobs. And
I think you knew Tony Belko too or something, right?
Yeah. Tony hired me a couple of times.
Yeah, I think that's how I met you, through him.
Yes. Yeah, because we had a mutual friend, I think it was Leonard Lipman, had given me Tony's name, and then Tony gave me your name, and I think I came and worked for you for free on a car commercial that shot in the rotunda of it was like two presidents. Anyway.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, that's a kick. That's hilarious. Yeah, it was like Redwood City or something.
And then you got me on the Fat Box job for the casino. We shot a casino spot up in Redding, and then I kind of connected with those guys, and Fat Box actually hired me as a producer, and I was there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years.
But now, what happened before we get to Fat Box? Wasn't there some sailing involved somewhere?
There was. That was in between. My wife and I moved from LA to San Francisco the long way via the Panama Canal. I was living on a sailboat that I had inherited from my grandfather. He had built it in the 70s. Yeah, the Marianne II, 35-foot Yorktown sailboat. Very basic, not anything fancy, but a good solid boat. And my wife and I decided, before we had kids and a mortgage and all that, when we decided we were leaving LA, we basically sold our cars, put what little we kept in storage, and we took 10 months and sailed. That was me coming back from the grocery store. So we're living on a 35-foot sailboat, and essentially our car was our little dinghy, which is what this picture is. And whenever we were in a bigger town, some of the bigger towns actually had Walmart in them, which had great produce and they'd take your credit cards and stuff. So we would go and stock up. This is me coming back from a provisioning trip with all the groceries, and you'd have to bring it all, take a cab back to the dock, load all the food into the dinghy, run dinghy out to the boat, load it all into the boat. It's
In a way, it's sort of like quarantine because you have to stock up.
Yeah, honestly, when this whole thing happened, I thought one of my first thoughts was, God, I wish we still had the boat because we could go to Mexico and you're totally self-sufficient as long as you have diesel fuel. Like we had refrigeration, we had a water maker, so we could make drinking water out of seawater. Like you wouldn't need to be around anybody as long as you had fuel. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so you could make regular water out of salt water.
Yep. Yeah. Not much. I think it made like a gallon an hour or something. So you still had to be careful of how much water you use, but
Yeah. Yeah. So your own little water world. Okay. So then you got to see some sights.
yep. Yeah, this is this is on the other side of the canal, an old Spanish fort where they used to load the galleons with gold before they sent them back to Europe. Yeah.
And this is you continuing your film career.
Yep, that's me filming part of a little documentary that I was working on at the time. Yeah,
This was about your grandfather.
yeah. He had tried to sail that same boat to Hawaii in 1979 and got dismasted and 800 miles out and never completed the trip. So after I inherited the boat, after he had passed away, my dad and my two younger brothers and I sailed the boat from LA to Hawaii and sort of finished that trip that he had started but never finished.
That's a great story. Yeah. So is that a film somewhere we can see or?
It is. It actually, like just within the last couple months, I finally finished it. So now I need to do something with it, send it to festivals, or I don't know what I'm going to do. But yeah, it's finally done.
Here you're hunkering down. Are you fixing something in here?
That's a good picture of what the reality of cruising is like. Everybody envisions that you're, in a hammock with a fancy drink with an umbrella in it.
Yeah.
And the reality is the best description I've heard of cruising is that you're working on your boat in some of the most beautiful places in the world because there's always something breaking and, that's me in the engine room fixing something. I don't know what.
What was the name of your boat again?
It was the Marianne II. So it was named after my grandmother. My grandparents had bought their first boat, which was, I think, a Cal 20 that was the Marianne. And then they decided they wanted to try and sail to Hawaii, so they needed a bigger boat. So he built the Marianne II, which was this boat.
Wow. Well, I'm not a sailor at all, but my grandfather on my mother's side, who I never met, his first vehicle was a boat. Before he ever even got a car. But he was Dutch and in the Navy and.
Okay, cool.
And there you are on the canal, no doubt.
Yeah, coming through the Panama Canal. Incredible experience.
And then there's another couple there?
Yep, that's Bernard Hale on the far left there, one of my best friends literally since 5th grade, I think it was. And his girlfriend at the time, Jen, and they actually came down twice and met us. So we would have, most of the time it was just my wife and me, but sometimes we'd have people would come down for a week or 2 weeks and, meet us somewhere and sail with us for a while and leave the boat somewhere else and join for part of the adventure. Looks
like they've got little trains that are pulling the boats.
Little electric. Yeah, that canal is so amazing just from an engineering standpoint. There's no pumps. It's all gravity fed from rain, basically, from the lake up above.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a book called Path Between the Seas. I'm sort of digressing here, but you should read it.
Who did you get to take that picture?
We had some friends that were anchored next to us, Jay and Jenny, and so I think Jenny went up the mast on their boat and took that picture of us, and then she came down and I went up the mast and took some pictures of their boat, so we sort of returned the favor for each other.
That's awesome. And you're on some little desert isle?
Yeah, those are the San Blas Islands off the Caribbean side of the canal. There's literally the Kuna Indians still live there and harvest limes and coconuts, and
wow.
It's definitely out there.
You enjoyed your time, but you probably had to make a living after that.
Yeah, we had saved enough money to do this trip, and we actually burned through it faster than we thought we would, even though it's a fairly cheap way to live. But yeah, we had to come back. So that was when we moved to Northern California, and I met you, and you were nice enough to get me some work, and through that I met Kent and Rachel, who ran Fatbox, and so this picture is on the set of a spot we did for the Fairmont Ghirardelli when they were redeveloping that property.
It looks like you still have that jacket.
I do. Yeah, I had that jacket for a long time. I got that on that movie Virus that I worked on. Jamie Lee Curtis wears a North Face jacket in that movie. Uh-huh. So that was a product placement deal. So all the crew were able to get North Face gear for like half off or something. So that was where
nice.
That was where that came from.
It's hilarious how over the years when you're on something where they have some swag or whatever, and then you just hold on to that piece for a long time. I remember being on a Red Wings commercial, got some free boots because we needed them to make impressions in the snow, and I had those for 10, 15 years. But yeah, okay, so here we go. Fatbox, and that was a pretty good time, right?
Yeah, Fatbox was incredible. It was Kent and Rachel, especially Kent, ran it very by the seat of his pants and kind of fast and loose. He definitely lived life to the fullest, and he, part of the benefit of that was he was very willing to give people an opportunity to try and spread their wings and see if they could fly. So I was probably working there, I don't know, 2 months or 3 months, and he gave me my first thing to direct. It was just a corporate video or something, but still he was really good about having faith in his people and letting them sink or swim on their own. And that's a great way to learn. You probably learn more when you sink, but but having the opportunity was really valuable. And it was an amazing group of people that worked there. It was that
friends for life, right?
Yeah. I'm still friends with most of the people I worked with there. It was just such a smart, creative, good group of people. We were really lucky.
And that's where you met Will.
Yeah, so Will Myers, Will started there after I'd been working at Fatbox for probably a year, maybe more. And he was a punk kid, probably, I don't know, 22 years old or something, and had built his own, I remember he had built his own jib out of like PVC pipe, and and same thing, Kent let him start shooting. And in fact, on this project, on this Fairmont Ghirardelli project, Svetlana Chevetko was the DP, who was amazing, but then we needed to shoot some second unit stuff, and Kent just gave me and Will this brand new F900, which was the hot HD camera at the time, and a monitor and a tripod and a bunch of batteries, and said, all right, go shoot some stuff. And it was fun as hell. We just drove around San Francisco and would steal shots of cable cars and sailboats, and Will knocked it out of the park. He got great stuff. Nice.
And that made its way into the final.
Yeah, it's all in there for sure.
Yeah, cool. So moving on from this, who is this guy here?
So this was 2007. Like a lot of people, my wife and I decided that the Bay Area was too expensive, and because we wanted to buy a house, we had our daughter, our son was on the way. So that was what prompted us to relocate to Boulder, Colorado. And I worked for a little production company in Boulder called 42 Productions that was doing their first feature film. So they hired me to produce their first feature. They actually had the first 2 Red cameras in Colorado. Pete Coggin, the owner, is a super smart guy, and he had seen a demo of the Red cameras and jumped on board right away and put down his deposit. So he got some of the first cameras.
So Red ones.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was. Yeah, I don't remember which serial number, but they were definitely early from the assembly line. And so Jesse Ventura was our sort of best known actor in the film. So he came out for, I think, 10 days. He was here, and oh my God, was he a hoot to work with. You can imagine the stories he's got with the life he's lived between, being in Arnold movies, being a Navy SEAL, being a big time wrestler, being a governor. Like he could keep us all entertained for hours and hours and hours. And he was just the sweetest guy, just a total gentleman.
That's awesome. What a kick. Now, had he already been governor?
He had already been governor. Yep. And he was more or less retired. He was living in Minnesota in the summertime, and then every winter he and his wife would go down. They had a property, kind of, maybe still do, sort of off the grid in Baja, and he would go down there when the weather got too cold in Minnesota. But was nice enough to come and work on our little independent film.
Huh, what a kick. And is that somewhere that people can see it? Or
it's called Woodshop. I don't know. I know it was on iTunes for a while, and I think it might have been on Amazon. You'd have to Google and see where it is now. It's frustrating that stuff can't live somewhere permanently. It'll be somewhere for a while and then goes away. But after Woodshop was done, ever since leaving California, I had kind of wanted to start my own production company, and it was actually Kent Russell who was the owner of Fatbox that had told me when I told him I was moving to Colorado. He said you should do your own thing. He said you're smart and you're good with people and you could do this well, and that kind of stayed in the back of my brain. So once we were done with production on Woodshop, that was when I decided to start Waypoint Films. So I started my own production company in 2008, and have been doing that ever since.
And now, did that lead you to some Nike work?
It did. I met actually on Woodshop. In this photo here, you can see Brooke Aiken, who's the DP in this shot. He came and day played as a camera operator, or maybe an assistant, I can't remember, on Woodshop because he wanted to get his hands on a red camera because the ones we were using on that feature were the only ones in Colorado at the time. Anyway, so Brooke and I became friends, and then he introduced me to a friend of his, a guy named Dallas Barber, who's an amazing producer, also based here out of Boulder. And Dallas has, over the years, done lots of work with the Jordan brand. So, and my timing, I just happened to be lucky with my timing. Right around the time I met Dallas, the Jordan projects he was doing were getting bigger and bigger, so he needed some production help. So I was able to help, and this was a really fun shoot we did in LA with Kevin Hart.
You're wrong. It's here where the shoe meets the floor. Weak again. Wow. Tomahawk. Statue of Liberty. The Afro. I'm not your dad. Ooh. Layup. Come on. Explosiveness also means dominating the lane. He's a dummy. He can't guard you. Yes. And his face like a freight train. Choo choo. Slightly dirty. His face is in the way. Kill.
It was some web spots that were made to complement the broadcast spots that Kevin Hart did with Dwayne Wade back in, I think it would have been 2010, probably. So yeah, this was a big fun shoot. We had a techno crane and we had stunts and pyro
and this was not the first floor, right?
No, this is a ballroom. I can't remember. It's not the Elks, but it's the Shriners or somebody. It's an old building in LA. And and there's no freight elevator. So the grips literally had to disassemble the techno crane and carry it up the stairs. And you can see those chandeliers that were made in the 30s. We had to get a fine arts company to take those down because we had a bunch of shots where we were shooting basketballs. So they had to take them down and crate them and roll them into. We had to roll them around out of the shot wherever we were shooting.
Ay. Wow.
But it was a super fun project. Great project. I got to reconnect with a guy I had known at USC, Ross Dunkerley. So Ross Dunkerley was I had known at USC, and he had since become Clint Eastwood's gaffer. So I think he shot, I can't remember, 10 or 12 of Clint Eastwood's films, and he turned out to be available for this. So we had kind of known each other in film school, but for the first time we were able to work together on this, which was really fun. And
then this was more Nike stuff, or?
Yep. Yeah, more Nike stuff for Dallas. Dallas Barber. This was actually, I think, 2012. This was a NFL shoot we did for Jordan at a football field in LA, and we got to use this crazy camera souped up golf cart contraption. Pablo Barron was the DP on this. Pablo's actually a Boulder guy. He went to film school at CU here in Boulder, and then has gone on to do a lot of big commercial spot stuff. So he and I had kind of connected through our Boulder connections, and I was able to bring him on to shoot this one. So yeah, that was a fun one.
Now here's a different DP.
Yes, this is Kevin Emmons, who has become, like Brooke Aiken, a good friend of mine here in Colorado. Kevin lives in Colorado, or lived in Colorado at the time I met him, and he had, kind of like me, he had spent decades in LA, and he had done much more professional work in LA than I had. He had shot hundreds and hundreds of broadcast spots, so I was able to bring him on. This is another different Nike job that we were shooting at the LA Coliseum.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, Kevin's also a director, sometimes works just as a DP, sometimes director DP, so we've been able to do a lot of great work together.
Nice. And here you got your typical pointer shot.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think there was anything we were pointing at. I think somebody said they were taking a picture, so we both did the obligatory point.
Exactly. Nice. So this is where Will shows up.
Yeah, as my company, Waypoint Films, was getting going, I didn't have enough of my own clients to pay the bills, so I was line producing for Dallas, my friend Dallas, and also for a company here in Denver called Impossible, that was one of the big production companies at the time. And then as I started getting my own clients and developing relationships with the agencies here in town, I started being able to do my own projects. This was a fun one for Door-to-Door Organics, for Vermilion, one of the little agencies here in Boulder. And yeah, so I think I tried to, nothing against Will, but he's California based. This was shooting in Colorado. So I think I tried to get both Brooke Aiken and Kevin Emmons to shoot this, and they were both booked and out of town.
Yep.
So I couldn't get them. So I flew Will out to to shoot this for me. And it was fun to reconnect with him, all these years after the Fat Box days. So totally. Yeah, this was a fun spot.
Nice. And when you were getting going too, you'd often go on the road with Will because he could edit while you went, right?
Yeah, that was an interesting sort of pairing of skills. Will's a very talented cameraman, but he's also a really good editor, and we didn't usually have the time or the luxury to edit during production. Like, it's not like we would shoot all day and then go home and edit in the hotel. He would usually edit, the following week or whatever. But just the fact that he was an editor, he was very sharp about what we needed in terms of shot and coverage and matching action and things like that. So it's an interesting thing, because sometimes I feel like it's really beneficial, because if the guy who's shooting also understands editing, he can weigh in that way. But on the other hand, I've also have had lots of sort of pleasant surprises where the editor was not involved in the shoot at all, and the editor just gets the footage and puts it together in a way that the cameraman or I never thought about. And then it's like, oh wow, that's a cool surprise. So there's definitely benefits to both.
Yeah. And a lot of those chops that Will got probably back in Fat Box.
Yep. Yeah, he had again started shooting on his own as a kid, really, and then because Kent and Rachel were so great about giving people the opportunity to go out and try stuff, he definitely started shooting a lot, started cutting a lot, and got a lot of experience doing that.
Okay, so here's your other DP.
Yeah, that was a fun one. That was a shoot for a Boulder agency here. Obviously, we didn't shoot it in Boulder. That was out in Santa Monica, and we got to have a stormtrooper with us. It was for Tervis drinking cups, and it was sort of a gag of a stormtrooper sunbathing. So this guy was a trooper, pun intended, and laid in the sun for probably an hour or two while we shot stills and video. And by the time we gave him a break and told him he could stand up, his legs had gone numb because the stormtrooper costume was cutting off the blood flow. So we had to help him up and walk him around a little bit. He was fine, but
yeah, you probably lost some weight too.
Yeah, probably being out. Yeah,
at least he wasn't in a Darth Vader outfit. That would have been
true. At least he had the white. Yeah.
So moving on from here, there you are, some big lens and a red.
That was in Madrid with Will. We did a bunch of work for an agency in San Francisco and got to do some international stuff. So that was we shot some stuff in Madrid and Munich on that shoot. It's always fun to get to see the world a little bit and have somebody else paying for the travel.
Would you just, the two of you, go and then pick up crew there?
Yep. Yeah, it was just the two of us, and then we got local gear rental, local camera crew, grip electric. This was interview stuff, so it was pretty small in terms of the crew we had to find. But yeah, I didn't want to deal with a carnet and dealing with customs and importing and all that, so we just rented the gear local, kept it simple.
Nice. And you were able to find what you needed.
Yep. Yeah, we did great. Yeah, that's one of the things I've had to get good at is finding crew I can trust all over the U.S., but now internationally as well. And you know, the first step is try and find somebody I know in that town, and if I can't find that, I try and get a referral from somebody I know, and if I can't get that, maybe I try, you know, Production Hub or one of those services. But it's a lot to gamble on somebody you've never worked with or who can't be referred by somebody else. So I usually really try to get a referral from somebody at least.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I guess that is one nice thing about YouTube and that kind of stuff. You know, people start, or Instagram, you know, they start putting themselves out there, and then you can kind of get to know them through that.
And then it's been nice, even before this whole pandemic started, it was nice to be able to do, you know, FaceTime or a Zoom call or whatever, to be able to see somebody and have a conversation with somebody in Spain or Australia or Amsterdam or wherever before you actually, you know, meet them for the first time on the ground.
Speaking of on the road, here we've got a spot we can play, and maybe you can talk while we roll.
This was I had started working with a small agency here in Denver called Meme. Dean Del Calzo, super smart, talented guy. He had some connections with Kia, and they needed some web content for one of their all-wheel drive vehicles. So they came to Colorado, and I was able to pull in Kevin Emmons, the local director DP, who has done lots of car stuff. So he was a great fit for this. And we shot, I think it was 3 days of, it's all MOS stuff, but combination of ski resort, running footage, small town, the house, showing off the car and all its features and all that. So that was a fun one to be able to do here in Colorado. And we got to close down one of the main very pretty mountain passes, and so we could do running footage with a camera car and use both lanes. Colorado Highway Patrol would lock it up for us, and I think that was my first experience with real lockups for running footage and camera car and all that. So that was a fun one.
So this is like an arm car you're on here?
Yep. Yeah, that's a local, the Stelling brothers here in Denver have that. So it's got, it's basically a camera car. It's got platform on the front, on the rear, plus the arm. We didn't use the arm at all on this. I think we had a slider you can see there on the front porch to be able to shoot some rear and 3/4 rear stuff.
Oh, here we're back.
There you are.
Yeah. It meets the eye in Northern California.
Yeah. It was nice of them to build that stage right down the street from you. Very considerate.
It was handy. Yeah, it's nice when you come to town and there's a little something to do.
This was a travel pro spot for an agency here in Boulder, and this we actually shot at the Denver airport. The Denver airport's actually fairly film friendly, which is really nice. So we got to go just inside of security to get this shot, and it was very time consuming to get through, but we got some really nice stuff out of it. So
yeah. The same is true I've found at SFO here too. So maybe that's the thing about airports.
We tried to shoot some Honda stuff at SFO, I don't know, probably 4 years ago, and they just gave us a blanket no. They said they weren't doing any production, but Oakland was very willing to play
because
ball,
it was vehicles outside. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
probably
that was the issue.
A different thing. Yeah. Okay, so here we are. I'll turn this down as well. But so this is the spot. It looks like it's CG.
Yeah, this was a really fun spot. This was for Wines of Chile. It was an agency here in Boulder. And they wanted something really outside the box and kind of surprising. And so they had come up with this concept where the bottles would explode in beautiful slow motion and create this sort of Rorschach painting abstract painting on the walls. And so this is one of the things I love about video production is that each job has its own set of really unique challenges, and this one especially so. We did a full day of testing with the special effects team at one of the fire department training centers here in town, and we played with different squib sizes, different viscosities of liquid, different placement of squibs on the bottle. The art department, had to create this custom table with a I think it was an 1/8-inch steel top so that the pyro wouldn't blow it to smithereens. I think it was a 600-pound piece of steel that sat on top of this table. And then we had to drill it all to pre-drill holes so the pyro wires had a place to be hidden.
Right.
And then we did some tests with candy glass, and it just looked fake. So we ended up using real wine bottles, which obviously was really dangerous.
Wow.
So we had to be very careful with safety, and we wrapped the whole set in visqueen, several layers of visqueen to prevent flying glass. And then there's a couple of shots, if you watch that spot, where more than one squib goes off. So that's actually the box that we had to get from LA. So I think the math ended up being 0.035 seconds in between the charges in order for it to be 2 seconds apart when played back at regular speed. We're very lucky. Tim Dernick is a Academy Award winning special effects guy, and he's based here in Denver. So we were lucky to be able to get him on this job. Him and Jim Milligan, who's also great. This was Jimmy Matlos was the DP on this. We brought him from LA. He's sort of a phantom specialist because we knew we were going to have to shoot 1,500, 2,000 frames a second.
Right. I've worked with this script before.
Yes, that is Mitch.
Stilling.
We're very lucky here. It's not a huge production scene here in Colorado, but we do have a really talented, experienced group of keys, which is great. Yeah, those were all painted matte black. Aylin Michon was the production designer on this, and she just did an incredible job from everything from building the set and the custom table to figuring out viscosities of the liquids and different colors that would read best on camera when they're sort of aerated. It was a lot of work for her and her team, and they just killed it.
A ton of pre-pro.
Yeah, and that was interesting. Jim Milligan, the special effects guy, was saying so many times people don't want to spend the money to do the testing, and that's for special effects stuff like this. That's the best money you could spend. So, again, the time we spent doing all these tests with different, all the different variables, we learned so much, so that on the day we could get what we needed, and make our day still. Aaron Hartshorn was the director on this, really talented young director. He did an incredible job. He did some really detailed previs on this, and again, that was super helpful to know on the day what camera angles we needed and just be able to be very organized on the shoot so that we could maximize our time and make sure that we were being as safe as possible.
Excellent. Okay, so here we got some Honda.
Yeah, Oakland Fire Department there. They were super helpful on this spot. Kevin Emmons was nice enough to introduce me to the nice folks at Baker Street, and we did a first project together and hit it off. And Waypoint's been doing most of the Honda of Northern California broadcast spots for the last 5 years, I think. So they've been a really great group of people to work with. And even though they're regional spots, because it's a big region, they have good budgets. So as you can see here, we're doing process trailer shots, and we've got to do lots of running footage with closed down roads. We closed down the Bay Bridge last year or the year before to shoot some running footage.
Yep.
So these have been really fun, and as you well know, lots of great crew in the Bay Area. So it's always
Totally.
Nice to be able to reconnect with all them.
So this is, instead of the pointing one by the camera, this is the thumbs up to the fire.
I think that one was actually real. I don't think that was staged. I think I was actually giving them the thumbs up because they were pulling out to go do a lap of our route that we had mapped out with Oakland PD.
Sure.
So these are all, I should mention, Brian Bacino, who's the creative director at Baker Street. He directs all these spots. Super talented guy. That's him in the yellow shirt right there. So he and Kevin Emmons are an amazing combo, the two of them, Kevin shooting and Brian directing. So that's been really nice to be able to sort of have the team and keep continuing to work with the same people, because you develop a shorthand, which is really nice, especially on a bigger, more complicated shoot where there's lots of moving parts.
Okay, so now we're going to a different country, I imagine.
Yeah, so I mentioned Dean Del Calzo and Meme, the agency here in Denver, who I did the Kia project with, and we've also been doing a lot of work with Deloitte. Everything that we do for Deloitte is all internal, essentially corporate video, but they appreciate the value of good quality video. So, and we've been able to shoot all over the world. This was in Hyderabad, India. They have a big office there. We've also shot in Amsterdam, Sydney, all over the U.S.
Now here you're picking up crew, or you're bringing crew?
Same thing. We're bringing the DP, and all the gear and all the other crew are local. So I'm either depending where it is, if it's like Toronto, I might hire the crew myself. In somewhere like India, I'll use a production services company, just because they know for example, this temple where we shot, because of where we were shooting, the union, their day rate paid for, I think it was 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And they went into overtime at 6 p.m. regardless of when the call time was. So you can see this shot was at night, so we needed a split. So I think we had a noon or a 1 p.m. call time. They still go into overtime at 6 p.m. Like, I wouldn't have known that. So that's why you really have to have somebody you trust and who understands some boots on the ground that know the local intricacies. So
totally, yeah, a fixer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
that
this
looks
was
like
this incredible temple in south of Hyderabad, and we had, I forget, like 78 people on the call sheet. We had a huge Grip Electric crew. We shot some drone stuff. We had a Bollywood dance number with like 30 dancers. It was really fun, and there's so much production that happens there that you have all the resources. You have, it might be older equipment, but these people are just so excited to be working with us, and we were so lucky to have them helping us out and have the manpower and the gear and the know-how to do it all.
That's awesome. So now, is this the full spot, or is this something else?
This was something earlier. I think we did shoot some content. Yeah, this was shot in India, but it was the first shoot we did in India, not the second. So we shot some in India, some in Denver, some in Toronto, some in New York.
There's Toronto.
Yeah. So yeah, again, kind of all over the world, and similar thing where the Dennis Flippin is the DP. He's based in LA now. Just super talented guy, and again, we've literally traveled the world together, so we have a shorthand. We know what to expect from each other. We know, it's so nice working with people like that when you have that shorthand and you have that trust.
Right. There you go. Boom. We're all connected. Oh, this is pretty recent, isn't it?
Yeah, this was so occasionally I still get to put on my director hat. So this was a spot for Denver Zoo that we shot in, when did we shoot it? February?
Yeah, early this year.
Right before before everything stopped.
Yeah.
And that's Brooke Aiken again, and my great local Colorado crew. So that was a fun one to work on.
Nice. From the other side.
That's the shirt I'm wearing right now. So you can see I got this is the Waypoint shirt. I have our office lat lawn. And
nice.
Is a bunch of places we've shot all over the world.
Very good. Cool. Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Well, that's kind of brings it right to your brand new office here.
Yeah. That was the very first Waypoint office would have been 2008 in my basement. And yeah, luckily we've come a long way since then. I have a much, much nicer office downtown Boulder on Pearl Street.
Oh, nice.
Great neighborhood. So yeah.
So it is possible to get out of the basement and
it is.
Move on.
Last year I got to do a fun project with Dave Acord, my friend who I had mentioned, who's the sound designer on some of the Star Wars movies. He needed to record some pyro sound effects, and as you know, you can do that in California, but it's very regulated and can be sort of cumbersome. Whereas in Colorado, they're a little more lax about that stuff.
Right.
So he came out. He and Matt Wood, who's his sound designer partner in crime, they came out, and we spent a whole day with Jim Milligan, the same effects guy who I'd done the Wines of Chile job with.
Yep.
And Jim basically blew stuff up for us all day, and Dave recorded all the sound, it was sort of a strange thing to be not caring about what it looked like and only caring about what it sounded like, which is the opposite of especially special effects. Like normally all the sound is all done in post, but anyway,
right.
So that was a fun one. And then we also, Dave wanted to flesh out his weapons recordings. So he and I went to this crazy shooting range in Vegas last summer and shot like basically every gun you could think of. And he had all these mics set up, and we got to record it all. So it's a company in Vegas that, like bachelor parties go out there and shoot machine guns. And, so yeah, we just rented them for the day and had proper adult supervision and and just recorded it all. But
wow.
But the 12-year-old boy in me was pretty excited to be, A, helping do my tiny little part for a Star Wars movie, and B, blowing stuff up and shooting guns. It was fun. It was a good time.
That's wild. And now he's got all those different guns that he can pull from for his sound effects.
Yep. Yeah, that's all added to the library now that they can pull from. So.
And then you can layer them for the guns that are still coming in the future.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
Yeah. So now, when you think about all your different experiences throughout your life so far, because obviously you're still a young guy, and
just turned 50. Not that young.
You're halfway there. And so I can't imagine you'd do it differently, or would you?
I don't think I would. I feel very lucky that I get to do something that I really enjoy and make a living at it. And it allows me to be somewhat creative and to travel a little bit and work with very intelligent, creative people who don't always fit in the 9-to-5 cubicle box. I feel very fortunate that I get to do that, and I don't think there's much I would change. It kind of worked perfectly that when I was younger and living in LA, I got to work on feature films, which take over your life for months and months and months.
Yeah.
And then not by design, sort of by accident. I didn't know when I moved here to Boulder that there was such a strong ad agency scene here, but that sort of pushed me into short form work. And now that I have a mortgage and a wife and 2 kids, that's better because I still get to do production and be on a set and be creative, but I'm only gone for a week instead of, 6 months or whatever.
Totally.
So yeah, I feel really fortunate that things have sort of worked out how they have. I don't think there is much I would change. It'd be fun maybe at some point to try another feature film, but
right.
I don't think I would try that until the kids are out of college or out of high school, moved out.
Right.
And honestly, that whole business has changed so much since I wouldn't even know where to start with, making a film and the distribution and all that stuff, how that all, so different now, but.
For sure. Yeah. And that's going to change again, apparently, because of what we're going through now. So along the way, you've worked with some, really stellar professionals. Do you ever write down, little sayings or whatever, or little, nuggets of wisdom. Do you like think of that at all as a thing to sort of capture, or do you just have stuff in your head?
I don't have like a list of pearls of wisdom.
Yeah.
I try to be very supportive when, sometimes high school students, film students, whatever, will just find my website and contact me, and I'm happy to talk to them on the phone, get a cup of coffee, whatever, do what I can to sort of pay it forward and try and help them get a foot in the door, because so many people did that for me.
Yep.
When I moved here to Colorado, when I was in Los Angeles, you giving me opportunities when I moved to the Bay Area. I've had a lot of that in my life, so I try and be good about, doing that for people who are up and coming.
No, that's excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you. That was fun. It was fun to sort of take a quick ride through your life.
Yeah.
And
I hope there's something interesting there that's, I don't know. Yeah. Hopefully it'll be interesting to people besides you and me and people who know me.
I think there's always something to glean from other people's experience, even if it's not a perfect package, and well scripted and all. Just because you can say, "Oh, that's possible,"
Right.
And I always tell people, it's like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So it's like,
I guess sort of back to the pearls of wisdom thing, when people are starting out, I always tell them persistence and trying to think ahead. Those are the two things that will put you apart from everybody else. Like, keep trying, keep being persistent, don't give up, because it's not always easy. And if you can be the guy on set who comes to me and asks me, do I need to start setting up tables for lunch before I tell you to do that? That's gold. Like, You're the first guy I call or girl I call for the next shoot. Like, that's huge. Yep. That's something that,
Yeah. Commit yourself and be engaged. Don't just like, oh yeah, eventually I'm going to have your job. So, but
right.
Meanwhile, I'm just going to stand around.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
And part of that is I think back to some of the jobs I did as a production assistant in LA, and I was that guy. I was the one who was just standing around waiting to be told. And I would have bugged the shit out of me as a PA, me now as a producer.
Right.
And I don't know why I didn't know better. In hindsight, it's so obvious, but that's why I try and share that with people. But yeah.
Well, and it also is good to hear that even though you were that person that wasn't an active listener, PA, so to speak, you still did okay. Where sometimes you see a PA and you think like, if you can't hack it here, maybe you should check a different career. But, sometimes you just have to find
the people you really gel with.
The right
find someone people, like you who saw, okay, this kid seems smart. I'll give him an opportunity to, I'll try and get him a PA spot on this job or whatever. Makes a big difference.
You did all right. Well,
luckily.
Cool. Thank you for taking the time and for sharing.
Man, thank you.
Bits of your life, and I think people can enjoy that. So, thanks a lot.
Cool. Well, thanks for doing this.
And thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time.
La vida está llena de momentos bellos y Honda siempre está contigo con su legendaria confiabilidad, como el rediseñado Civic 2016 por solo $179 al mes.
And there you go, another example of the type of spot that Jed and his team have been putting together for many years.